Hello, I'm Dr. Angie McCartney.
And I'm Ruth McCartney.
Welcome to TeaFlix,
where each episode's intimate conversation features a fascinating guest across the spectrum of Beatles world, pop culture, Grammy winners, the music industry, chefs, producers, music stars, actors, and more. So bottoms up and join us as they spill the tea on TeaFlix. We are live in the new year.
Hello, folks. Happy New Year, if you dare.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We are peachy keen and in the pink.
Yes.
And if you're doing dry January, don't worry. We're doing wet January. Yeah. So cheers to you.
So here's all the best to you. I hope it's a good year. It's got to be better than the last one.
That's what we say that every year, though, don't we?
Probably.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, so we've taken the liberty of not making any resolutions.
Yeah.
Because if you've made them, have you kept them?
I'm giving up Cuban cigars, hang gliding, and raw oysters before noon.
Oh, okay. So. I'm giving up back-to-back dating.
George
Clooney's speed dating, yes.
Yeah. So today's guest, we're so excited. We've been trying to get him back on for a while. IVOR Davis, who was a foreign correspondent for the London Daily Express and the Times of London, and he was on the spot to cover some of the biggest stories in North America. He was the only British daily newspaper correspondent to cover the Beatles' first American tour from start to finish, and he was given unparalleled access to John, Paul, George, and Ringo on the road in their hotel and during long nights of card and Monopoly games and shenanigans, no doubt.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
He was the only newspaper reporter present when the Beatles went to meet Elvis Presley in 1965. Oh. He ghosted a regular newspaper column for George Harrison. And Davis's first-hand insider memoir, the award-winning The Beatles and Me on Tour, which has been updated for the 60th anniversary, which is this year, can you believe, is an absolutely fascinating travel back in time where IVOR chronicles, both frankly and humorously, that you're about to hear, 34 days embedded with the world's most famous band. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, live from Ventura, California, Mr. IVOR Davis.
Yay! Hello, Ivis. Welcome.
How are you?
I'm terrific, thank you. Yeah, Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year.
Absolutely.
You look like Bonnie babies to me.
I thought you were going to say Bonnie and Clyde. No, that's more like it.
There you go. So how are you? You're looking splendid. You're in the pink and ready for 2024?
I think so. I think we're all ready for 2024 because it's a big year. We've got, Angie, you were around, but to believe that we were 60 years on for when the lads invaded America and it was a bloodless coup and they conquered America without any broken bones. Well, there were a few girls whose bones were broken.
A few broken glasses too.
And broken hearts.
Hearts.
Oh, yeah, some of those, yeah.
Yeah. Nope. It is amazing. Having a bit of fun with the invasion because you guys know better than anybody that it was an invasion and they struck at the heart of America from sea to shining sea. And look what happened. And,
I know. It's still happening, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing, and I know it's your program, but
it's yours today. It's yours.
Aren't you astonished, and I am, that so long after the big invasion, the boys are still bigger than ever? I mean, it's astonishing.
It is incredible. I saw a lovely meme on Instagram or somewhere the other day. Two old biddies. It looked like an Andy Capp cartoon, you know. Two old biddies walking past the news agents, and the headlines that were in the window: Beatles debut at number 1, Rolling Stones' new album. And she was like, just how far did they turn the clocks back this year?
Yes, very good.
They're both, the Stones are still going, Mick is still going strong. And the thing with the Beatles, obviously, was it opened the door for so many of the others, Lulu and Homan's Hermits and Freddie and the Dreamers and the Rolling Stones. And that's why they call it the British invasion, wasn't it? Because what Brian Epstein essentially did was he kicked the door down for everybody else.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it is. And what I did in my new book, starting to get around to my new book, is I talked to Sting and a few other people, and they said they were formulated by the Beatles, inspired by the Beatles. Every one of them, even Elton, you know.
Yes.
So it's a miracle story, really, isn't it? There's no other group ever
No.
I tell you, you mentioning Elton reminds me, one time when Paul came home to Rembrandt, I was in the kitchen washing up dishes, and he came in through the garage into the kitchen. He said, "Hi, Ange, so what are you listening to these days?" And I said, "Oh, there's a new fellow. It's called Elton something. He's got a great song called Your Song."
He's got big glasses and a plum velvet jacket, she said.
Yeah. So he said, "Oh, Elton, oh, okay, remind me about that. I must have a listen to him." And I remember thinking I was the one who said Elton John to Paul.
Yeah.
And the next thing I knew, we were at a launch party. I can't remember which.
It was Red Rose Speedway, and
Was
it was
it?
at the Savoy Hotel or the Ritz Ballroom in London. The Ritz.
Yeah. And Paul had got his people to get in touch with Elton's people and invite him to this party.
Yeah.
And he came in. It was a fancy dress party, but Elton he was in this plum velvet jacket with a little lace jabot thing.
Yeah.
And he had a walking cane because he'd broken his ankle or something or sprained it. And he had somebody with him, and he was really shy.
Mm-hmm.
And he went down to the far end of the room, a bit like this, with mirrors behind him, and sat. And I remember saying I think it was Derek Taylor, "That's Elton John, this new up-and-coming singer. So, you need to go and chat him up and put him at his ease."
Yep.
And I often think, I wonder if Elton ever knew that I was the one
who got him invited to
put his
the party.
name, got him on the invitation list.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you a question because we don't get a chance to talk too often. But it seems to me that the Beatles' honor legacy came much later than you would expect. It took 25 to 30 years before they suddenly lived. Now, the reason I mention that is a great story that was told to me by a guy called Richard Chesterfield, who used to delivered fruit to George Harrison's house from his family greengrocer. Okay. He said the Beatles used to rehearse at George's house. I think they rehearsed, as you know, everywhere else. You can tell me. But he said the neighbors were not impressed. And I'm gonna just I think we can use this racy term. He said, "Well, what did you think of the Beatles rehearsing on the street?" He says, "They called it music, but to us it was fucking noise."
Din. Yes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, shut that down. Shut that noise down. Yeah.
There you go.
But I think that's generational, though, isn't it? I mean, there's music now that is on Spotify that just I'd rather go and have a root canal than listen to some of the stuff that's out there.
Yeah, we watched a program the other night about if 30 or 50 years on of rap, was it?
No, oh God, it's 50 years anniversary of hip hop. Last August, yeah. And some of it's great, but some of it's just so repetitive and stuff. But I think that's generational. It's like when, Paul was growing up with my dad's record collection in the house, it was all, orchestral stuff and musical comedy, musical theater, show tunes and vaudeville. And I'm sure that when, the Beatles' Din came along with Ringo banging away and on the drums, my dad was always like, oh.
Well, when Paul first came home one night with the acetate of She Loves You, and he played it and we all sat and listened.
No, it wasn't She Loves You.
Oh, yes, it was. Jim said, "Why have you got to go, yeah, yeah, yeah? Couldn't it be yes, yes, yes? You are English." So She Loves You, yes, yes, yes. I don't think so. Fortunately, Paul didn't agree with him.
Well, and then there's another lovely one. He came home with the acetate. They used to press these acetate demos that were almost like Bakelite, the old 45s. And they would press the mix. Jeff Emmerich would get them like 5 or 6 done so they could go away and listen to them and then come back. Because if he had to remix it, he had to do it all from scratch. There was no computerized mixing desks or saving anything in those days. And Paul brought Hey Jude home. Oh, God. And Angie's, she's a qualified music teacher since she's 13 years old, piano teacher. And so it gets to the end and it starts the na, 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 na. And so she starts counting the bars. And she said,
it's a great song until you get to that. Oh, I can't stand that flaming repetition at the end.
Why is the people work hard to earn their money? Yeah. They don't want 72 bars of the same thing.
No.
This is the biggest hit.
Up to then, it was the biggest seller they'd ever had. And I remember at a party in our house one time, somebody said something about it, and he said, "Oh, ask Anne. She knows a hit."
Yes, Angie knows a hit with it. She'll tell you what's a hit.
I said, "Yeah, it's fine, but that last bit's crap."
Well, talk about you just used a word called crap. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Yeah.
I was told, and I believe it, that when he was a boy, Paul used to go around the streets with a shovel and bucket, picking up the horse manure for Jim's garden. Is that true or not?
I don't know exactly, but I know Jim used to put horse manure on the roses.
Yeah, and the rhubarb,
So,
believe it or not.
Yeah. People used to say,
oh God.
what you put on your rhubarb? Oh, horse manure. Oh, we have custard on ours.
But isn't that funny? The idea that because used to go around back in those days and shovel up the shit.
That's right. That the horses, because a lot of things were delivered by horse. Our coal used to be delivered by horse, and the milkman had a horse and cart.
Yeah.
God, I'm old.
Right. No, absolutely. It's
so there must have been plenty of horse poop on the streets.
Yeah, because I mean, I remember that. I grew up in Hackney in the East End of London, which wasn't dissimilar to your neck of the woods. So that's what happened. And the other interesting things are that I looked into this, and I'm going to ask you guys to take a guess at this. What do you think the Beatles and their estates get each day from Apple for the likeness and for all that? How much do you think they earn a day? Any idea?
Which Apple? Apple Records that they own, or Apple iTunes?
Well, no, Apple Records. They help, the Apple operation. Take a guess.
Oh, I see.
On a daily basis, all four of them.
The Jeff Jones Apple in London. Yeah. I'm gonna guess
dollars. Take a guess.
Well, if there's 365 days in a year, it's not $1 million a day each, because that would be 1.2 billion.
She's good.
So I'm gonna guess it's around $100,000 a day each.
Well, you're pretty good. It's just under $50,000 a day. A day. So you but that doesn't count. Paul on concert tour, Paul books,
sales
Paul at the National Gallery, or any of that stuff. Ringo's concerts around the world. But it is fascinating. What an industry. What did the boys ever think? Yeah, they never thought it, did they?
No. Well, and Ringo's mum used to send her money every week, and she would put £5 a week in a gyro post office account to save up for when our Richie's not doing that music thing anymore. She said, "I think I'll have enough for him to open his hairdressers."
She showed me a little blue post office book.
A little blue book and
savings account.
It had for Richie written in it, and she used to put a £5 a week away.
What about? Do you remember premium bonds?
Oh yes. Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I guess we all bought premium bonds, hoping to win the lottery or whatever. 100 quid. Yeah. It's funny the costs of things. I mean, my God.
Yeah, I read this morning somebody won 743 million last night on the lottery or something.
Yep, that's right. 810 million after tax. It'll be 423 million. But I'll take it.
Oh, that's better than a stick up your bum, isn't it?
What would you do and Martin do with 423 million?
I actually have a spreadsheet. I have a plan.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All we're short of is the money.
Right. There's one small component missing, but it's only money. And it's, money is when you're broke, and we've been there many times. When you're broke, money is like the controlling factor. But when you start to make a living and you can make ends meet, and maybe you get to have a little bit of savings and a roof over your head again, you realize what a construct it is by world governments and banks and whatever to just keep everyone in line.
It's a numbers game, isn't it?
Literally.
Yeah.
So you are as rich as whatever the institutions tell you on a piece of paper.
Yeah. And now, of course, there's all the Bitcoin and Ethereum, and Martin knows all that stuff. Yep. It's like a foreign language to me.
Right.
When you
I'm still on green stamps.
Yeah.
So green shield stamps.
Green shield. When you two earn such huge amounts of money, of course, I think, but there's always the tax man.
Yes, that's right. But
Oh, yeah.
you know, I don't mind paying tax because I like to have street lights that work. I like to have a fire department that comes if shit happens. I like to have a police department that's funded. I like to have a city that works. And so without taxation, you don't have any of those things. So if you want to live tax-free and go and be Ted Kaczynski on an island off Fiji somewhere in a mud
Bugger
hut,
off,
knock
yeah.
yourself out, you know, but don't expect the pothole to get fixed or somebody to educate your kids or drive the school bus. You know?
We had a power out last night when we had an earthquake yesterday morning.
Yesterday we had a power out and an earthquake.
And a power out, but it was back on in
no time.
No
because
time.
we
Yeah.
live in a municipality that's quite well run. So, you know, that the tax man, and I think the tax man became a shock for the Beatles, which is why they wrote a song about it, because they didn't realize until they saw their tax bill. I don't think they realized how much money they were actually making.
Yeah. Do you ladies think that they really knew the value of money in the early days?
I think, well, my dad was very good with me growing up. I got 50 pence a week and I had to walk both the dogs and clean the dog bowls every night. I had to wash the car on a Saturday or a Sunday, and I had to help Angie help Frida Kelly with all the fan mail. So, and that was, you know, that was 50p a week. And I had a little book and I had to write my chores down. And I can only imagine that he brought Michael and Paul up the same way, because, you know, when Mary died so suddenly, in October of 1956, they were all of a sudden without her national health nurse's paycheck. Yeah. So, you know, they had to learn to make soup out of dust, basically. So I think Paul has a very healthy respect and an understanding of money. And he's obviously had, you know, Linda's late father and late brother as good investment lawyers and things like that. And he's bought publishing catalogs and, you know, real estate. So, and you know what? I was astounded the other night. Martin and I stumbled upon, and it's on McCartney.com. It's a serious documentary about Friar Park, George's house in Henley-on-Thames.
Yes, I've been meaning to watch that.
And it was built by Sir Charles Crisp. And, you know, it's got acres and acres and gardens and gardens and houses and houses. And then, you know, flash forward to, there's another documentary about the Dakota, which is no doubt a very Tony building in New York. But when you see what George invested his money in and the yardage and the acreage and the roomage that he got, and how John and Yoko chose to live in this, by their standards, fairly small apartment. You know, I mean, it's by New York standards, it's not a small apartment, but it by no means was a sprawling, not the whole top floor or anything. The disparity had never hit me as to what a smart businessman George was and how he invested in handmade films and Monty Python and all of those things. Really, really quite an amazing business empire that he built.
Well, the interesting thing about that was that George was kind of, I wouldn't say dragged kicking and screaming into the film business, but his agent, Dennis O'Brien, I think it was.
Dennis O'Dell, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so Dennis said to him, they want to make Life of Brian. Right. And they ran out of money, or the people that were going to give them money didn't give them money, and they asked George, and George took a loan on the estate, and the film was a huge success, and so George got into handmade pictures, didn't he? You know that.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah. No, but you know, you think about he had to mortgage the house, but the thing on Friday, go and have a look on McCartney.com and just type in. Search Friar Park. It's about a 45-minute watch, but it goes inside and there's some lovely pictures of Louise visiting the house.
Yeah,
our dear departed Lou, and it's really an interesting piece. It's very well put together. But speaking of houses, I've always tried. You know, everybody knows Graceland, right? We've all seen the pictures of Graceland outside Memphis. What type of a house was it? Can you describe the night that you went as a reporter / fly on the wall with the Beatles to meet Elvis? Was it a grand mansion? What was the room like?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a grand mansion. It was a very comfortable house, but it was, I like to say it was decorated in Las Vegas grandiose, you know, over heavy furniture. And it was fairly dark, although it was the evening. And so the problem was that Elvis sat around and nobody introduced him to the Beatles. I mean, for 5 minutes, they ended up watching television. And don't forget, Elvis had the old changer. And in those those program clickers, didn't exist in England.
No.
So this was it. So there was Elvis clicking the old television and not saying a word. Nobody introduced them. And finally, Elvis, much to his sense of humor, and he did have a good sense of humor, although he had other problems, as we know. But he said, the classic line, if you guys didn't come here to jam, I'm going to bed. And that kind of broke the ice. They got on a bit better. But I want to tell you, when you look at the, what was that Beatles film they made 15 years later, the
anthology.
Anthology, yeah. The anthology says, it was a great evening, blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't. It was a bit of a bust.
Bit of a dud.
Because don't forget, Elvis was jealous of the boys.
Oh, yes.
Elvis had made all these crappy movies, 3 or 4 a year. Yeah. The Beatles made one film, A Hard Day's Night, big hit. And Elvis had not appeared live. And the Beatles, the week before, were at New York at the stadium for 58,000 people. So Elvis was a little bit, his nose was out of joint.
Right.
I remember Tony Barrow saying to me that as they left there that night and they were all going back to wherever they were staying, either a house or a hotel, they were all very quiet. He said, and John Lennon just suddenly said,
"No." Well, Tony Barrow asked him, "What was it like?
How did you feel?" He said, "Well, he's just a fella, really, isn't he?"
He's right. He was right.
Yeah.
Interesting
fellow, but a fella.
And they didn't send a string of photographer along with you, right? Did anybody capture that moment?
Picture. There are some rather out of focus pictures of John walking down the driveway. Nothing, because I saw the letter that Brian wrote to Parker saying, we don't want the media there. We don't want to make this a publicity, which is kind of crazy when you think of it.
Oh,
Brian was the one that told Parker not to do it. Not to have any photographers there, because you can imagine. But the other story that I was told, and I don't know if you ever heard it, that when the Beatles broke up, or after Brian died, Paul was interested in asking Colonel Tom Parker to take over the Beatles. Did you ever hear that story?
Yes, I've heard it. I don't know how true it is, but it would probably add up and make a bit of sense, because Tom Parker had worked wonders. Have you read Marshall Tyrrell's book about Colonel Tom Parker?
Yeah, Marshall Tyrrell. I read everything he writes because
he's terrific.
Yeah, his middle name is Marshall Prolific Tyrrell.
Yes,
Tyrrell.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is his 34th book or something, isn't it?
I know. Yeah,
it's incredible. What's it called? Elvis and me. The Colonel and Elvis and whatever. It's fascinating.
Yeah, anyway. It's by an acolyte, a young acolyte of Tom Parker.
Right. Yeah. I actually introduced them. Greg McDonald.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you did. Yeah.
Yeah. I introduced Greg to Marshall because I've known Greg for a long time through some friends in Big Bear, which is where Lila Nelson is from, and Lila is the wife of Gunnar Nelson of the Nelson twins, Matthew and Gunnar, who are Ricky Nelson's boys and Ozzie and Harriet's grandkids. And we worked with them on and off for the last few years. And Lila said to me, "Oh, you should meet my friend Greg McDonald. I'm sure you've got a lot of people in common." And so chatted to Greg about various things. And I said to him, "Have you ever thought about writing a book? Let me introduce you to Marshall Tyrrell in Arizona." And then bingo, next thing you know, they've got a bestseller. So good on them.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful book. And when Marshall sent it to me online, I stayed up through the night and right into the next day. I did not stop reading it till I'd read the entire book.
Yeah.
And Marshall wrote and said, "My God, you're a fast reader."
Well, the one for me, the last book I did that with was your book, your Charles Manson book.
Oh, yeah, I love that book. I could do with reading it again, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll see across the bottom, folks, IVORDavisBooks.com. I was got quite some stories. And, reading just from, I'm going to flip back to the other page here, reading from your bio that you sent me. You also penned a weekly entertainment column for the New York Times Syndicate. And you've interviewed people from Cary Grant, Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, Tom Cruise, Muhammad Ali, and Jane Fonda. So stepping away from the Beatles a minute, just tell us one of your fond or funny memories about that period.
Well, I did enjoy Muhammad Ali because he was exactly what you expected. He was leaving boxing and going into movies, and he made a movie called Gideon's about an African slave, and he played this. So I was going to write about him and his new career. Of course, I went to the house. He was fantastic. He was very funny. I got in there, and he said, "Sit down." I sat down, and then he got on the phone for 45 minutes.
Lovely.
Yeah, okay. So then he got off the phone. He said, "Well, we have an hour together. You've already used up 45 minutes. You've only got 15 minutes left." And then I realized he was pulling my leg because I spent 2 days with him. He drove me around LA in his convertible Rolls Royce with his current wife, Veronica, I think it was then. And he was like, I want to tell you, Muhammad Ali in an open convertible Rolls Royce on Wilshire Boulevard in LA was a riot.
Magnet.
We stop at the traffic light, and suddenly a big fat garbage can comes in the opposite direction, and they see Ali. They stop the car on Wilshire Boulevard, Miracle Mile. They get out the car. They go over. They hug him. They kiss him. He hugs them. There's meanwhile a 3-mile traffic jam.
Oh my Lord! That's
the kind of adoration that he brought. So I mean, and he was so funny. He was nobody can match him, can they?
No.
Oh God, absolutely. He was a brand all to himself, and I think in those days, people weren't so conscious of building their brand and what to say, whatever. But all of this float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, and all the little poems he used to do, and he was funny as hell, and he was just.
And he loved to do it. I mean, you just press the on button and he was off.
Yeah.
I mean, so he was terrific, and then even Jane Fonda was terrific. Because Jane Fonda said to me that she wanted to put her current husband into the White House. Can you guess? I mean, you may not know Tom Hayden. Remember him?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Said whatever it takes, money-wise, I'm going to do it.
Wow.
Tom Hayden never made it into the White House. Tom Hayden eventually got divorced by Jane for a little bit of hanky-panky with one of his co-workers. But
dear.
I will say Jane Fonda is an incredible survivor.
She just
beat breast cancer, as I understand.
I mean, she's everything. I I happen to have known her when she was married to Roger Vadim.
Really?
Goodness.
Yeah, in Malibu colony, and then my God, and then she went through the other husbands, and she's still working. She made a movie recently with the great actor Malcolm McDowell, with Lily Tomlin. I don't think the film did that well, but she is still working in her 80s.
Oh, I know. Her Grace and Frankie series with Lily Tomlin was fabulous.
Right.
Yeah.
And, she can be credited really for all the work out at home things. When VHS technology and Betamax technology hit the market, she was right there with her aerobics.
Workouts. Yeah, that's right.
Knowing as a woman, as a working actress, there's never any time to go to the gym. So she brought it into the household. She's, she doesn't get enough credit for that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, she did that. And also it was brilliant marketing strategy. And you guys know about marketing. So
just a bit.
We hope so.
You do.
Not a lot.
Of course you do.
So there's always these fun people, just as you go jogging along in life, you meet them. You guys have met a ton of people who've been on your show, right?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So you've also had kind of the political end of your writing career as well, with the Sirhan trial. He was convicted of killing Bobby Kennedy in 1969. You cover the Angela Davis trial, who was acquitted in 1972, and then the Daniel Ellsberg Pentagon Papers trial.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, good grief, man.
Yeah, I just got back from San Francisco about 3 days ago.
Yeah,
and I forgot. It's a strange city now, but it's busier, crazier. But I spent 3 or 4 months with Patricia Hearst. She was in court. I was covering it. You know, you remember that case? She
Oh,
was
yes.
by the Symbionese Liberation Army.
That's
Stockholm
right.
syndrome, right?
Mm,
And they forced her to go to do a bank robbery at the Bank of America.
that's right. Yeah.
A
Right.
classic, iconic
Yeah.
picture of her with a machine gun
Yeah.
in front of
Right.
the cameras. Yeah. And so what did they do? They sued. They arrested her when they rescued her and charged her with bank robbery. Well,
Oh, yeah.
but fortunately, well, actually, I mean, it was amazing that she got charged with bank robbery when she
Yeah.
was a kidnapped victim.
Well, isn't that what we know as Stockholm syndrome?
Yes, that's perfectly. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
You
The
are
captor becomes not enamored of, but so afraid of that, or indoctrinated by their
indoctrinated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. She was a victim of the Stockholm syndrome when the victim suddenly, because it's a survival technique, the victim
Absolutely. Yeah.
has to go along with the people who've captured her, and she did, and she got punished for that. But
Mm.
absolutely crazy.
so you know that was interesting. And you know, you mentioned the Manson thing, and I've got to bring this back. You know, when I did the Manson murders, they told me, the girls on the ranch told me that Charlie Manson played Beatle music to indoctrinate them. And
Wow.
because he said the Beatles were giving me secret messages about a black-white revolution. I mean, when I heard that rubbish, I thought, these guys are all crazy.
Yeah.
But then the district attorney used that, you know, brainwashed by the Beatles. I mean, and when I mentioned it to John, he said, what's stabbing people to death got to do with fucking anything, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, it's like hence Helter Skelter, right?
Yeah,
That was the hence the reference.
And I must tell you, the whole Manson thing is coming round again because Netflix have called me to do some interviews for another documentary. You'd think you'd heard it all.
Yes.
Right.
What else is there to say about Manson?
Wow.
Obviously.
Is Spahn Ranch still standing, or is it just lost?
It's gone.
Sands of time.
It's gone. It's a beautiful park. Beautiful park there. But there's that little cave. You've seen the iconic pictures where the family and it's still there. I went there last year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a completely different place. You wouldn't know it. It was a real crap hole, actually, of a ranch, which was fallen upon hard times. But it's now, you wouldn't recognize it. It's a state.
I mean, the poor people that own the land. I mean, if it's returned to the state, that's one thing. But can you imagine? You know, these hippies move in and they squat, and then this dreadful, terrible historical mass murder is now involved with your property. I mean, good God, how do you clean that one up? You
don't. But actually, after Manson was cleaned out and it moved on, then the place burned down. And now, as I say, if you went along, you wouldn't know. You can have a picnic there.
Ah, good. Well, at least they've done the best to try to raise that horrible memory.
Speaking of Manson, what was the thing you told me yesterday about somebody said everyone has a little?
Oh yeah, every woman has a little Marilyn in her. You just better be careful and find out if it's Monroe or Manson.
Ah, very good. I like it. Not bad.
I find them on my doom scrolling because we do social media for so many clients that so many screens and things go past my eyeballs every day. It's just one or two are bound to pop out at you after a while.
Well, by the way, talking about changing, I mean, I'm delighted that you two will be wowing them in the Ventura Museum of Ventura County.
Oh yes, I'm looking forward to that.
This year.
Yeah.
Yes, in July, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, I am too.
Yeah.
And then you can I'd like to introduce you, and then you can tell your fabulous stories, which are fabulous,
Yeah. Well, we'll have a tea and talk, and then they'll be able to use this particular TeaFlix for a bit of a promo to get a scratch the surface of what they're going to get in person in fabulous Ventura, California. Can't wait.
Yeah. And by the way, I think I did hear that you have another book coming out besides the one that's just come out. Can you tell me a bit about that?
So there's a couple in February next month. Good grief. Yeah. There Are Faces I Remember is 168 friends, celebrities, Beatle relatives, engineers, producers, all kinds of folks that Ange has personally met through her life, and sort of tangentially what they had to do with the Beatles and her life. And there are links to some interviews in the book via QR code to some of our TeaFlix interviews. And the cover is by Shannon, the incredible Beatles artist. But all of the pictures in the book, I have spent 2 years digitally painting them, because we couldn't necessarily afford $5,000 per picture from, these image libraries. So I painstakingly painted them all from scratch, and it's called There Are Faces I Remember. But out this week or last week, is Angie McCartney's Liverpool limericks and other random Irish haikus. So that's a funny little, it's on her tea website, Miss McCartney's Teas, or you can get it unsigned on Amazon. And the idea behind this is to tell the story of Liverpool and the Beatles and all of their people in limerick format. So she's been working on that, and it's out now and available at
It's
your
my
Amazon.
limerick phase.
It's her limerick phase,
Yes.
absolutely.
I love limericks. And I'm asking you, Angie, and you, Ruth. I always felt I found it difficult to write a limerick, and also American audiences are not that aware of the limerick business. So, can you tell us, is it easy to write a limerick?
Well, yes, there's this distinct format. It's 2 lines that rhyme, 2 shorter ones that rhyme, and the fifth line matches the first 2. So,
1, 3, 1, 2, and 5 rhyme, and 3 and 4 rhyme. So it's da 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 da, right?
Da 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 da.
And there you go.
Yeah.
So
you just need words to the da 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 da.
Oh,
right.
okay, we could.
So for the lovely lady Shannon, who's the artist who's designed the cover for There Are Faces I Remember, Ange wrote, "In the realm of art, Shannon's the guide. With Beatles hues, canvases glide. On artistshannon.com, her creations, da bomb. Her paintings, a Fab Four fans prize."
Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Well, that's very elegant, but aren't some limericks?
Oh, limericks are usually filthy.
Yes.
Limericks, yeah.
Well, they originated in England in the 1600s, would you believe?
Right.
But they're attributed to Ireland because of Limerick Castle.
Right.
They evidently became, in the 1800s, very popular in Ireland, in the area of Limerick, where Limerick Castle is.
And that is right there in our little handy dandy.
That's one of Ruth's little designs.
One of my drawings. Yeah.
Drawings,
All
yeah.
right, here's a quick quiz question. You mentioned Limerick. Which lovely drunken actor who was big in Hollywood came from Limerick? He was drunk all the time, and I met him all the time. I'm going to give you a clue.
Oliver Reed?
What?
Oliver Reed?
No, not quite. Oliver Reed, no. This guy was in Camelot.
Richard Burton?
No, you're close. Richard, the other Richard.
Oh, Richard Harris.
Right.
Oh,
Richard
Oh, yes. And
Remember-
for the most part, the reputation of limericks is that they're always pretty raunchy.
yeah.
So
They
I've had
don't
to
have
clean
be.
mine up for this book.
She's actually starting to record these into a little audio book, which we will target towards children to learn about Liverpool, the city, our football teams, the Beatles, the history of it all. So it's a fun little read. And there's lovely Rita, our meter maid.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's Eleanor Rigby in there. She's
Eleanor
got her
Rigby.
face in a jar by the door.
Yeah. So they're all
Those are all Ruth's artistic creations.
But
Yep.
but let me ask you this, Angie. Are most of your limericks, they must be moderately clean?
Oh,
Yes,
they're all
they
clean.
are in this book.
Yes, absolutely.
But
No.
if you sit around the house here, no, we've got others.
Eleanor Rigby, a figure so stark, so lonely and quiet in the park, picking up rice in a world cold as ice, a character both haunting and dark. In her solitude, she'd softly weep, no one to share the secrets she'd keep. With her face in a jar and her life below par, Eleanor's sorrows ran deep.
Oh, poor Ellen.
Now in song, her mystery's unsealed, a classic forever concealed. And now Eleanor's name lives in the Hall of Fame, a portrait of lonely revealed. You see?
See?
So they don't have to be dirty.
They can be.
When was the last time you've had a conversation about limericks with your guests? That's kind of an interesting.
Oh, last Saturday night.
Yes,
Saturday night. What were you on? What were you doing?
What was I doing? I was drinking Chardonnay, and Ruth provided a nice coffee table supper.
yeah, no, not on online.
Okay.
But with our dinner table,
in
our
private.
dinner table guests.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we've got a viewer friend, local friend here, Paul Moody. He always sticks around for the limerick, and if for some reason we don't do one, he collars me down at Moe's and he says, "You didn't do a limerick last week." So yes, we've done a couple this week for Paul. So there you go.
And we've done one for Ivor before
And
we say farewell.
We have definitely done one for you. But before we start winding up, what else would you like our global audience to know about IVORDavisBooks.com, or what you're doing next, or what's going on in the world of Ivor?
Well, I'm with this book about the 60th anniversary has a lot of new great stuff in it. It's got, I'm friendly with a lot of photographers, and some of the great photographers, and they've also allowed me to use some of their pictures. So, which is perfect. And there's such a lot of new stuff. I mean, I talked to you about what the Beatles are worth. People like to know that. By the way, I want to tell you that the richest rock star in the world is who? Very close to home.
Taylor Swift.
Well, very good answer. The answer is Paul is ahead of Taylor.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Yes. Paul is only worth 1.3 billion.
Okay, poor sod.
Is coming up.
Better get a job.
I'm going to go out.
1.1 billion Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And poor old Ringo has to survive on 350 million. So
Poor sod.
Oh,
Well, maybe he's got his mum's Gyro post office book with the 40 quid savings in it.
there you go.
He could buy 1 billionth of a Bitcoin and watch that go up in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's if Bitcoins go up. Yeah.
Yep, that's right. That's Martin's whole world. Well, it's been an absolute joy spending time with you. Can't wait to hug your neck and see you in person. Have a nice cup of tea up there in Ventura. And we like to close our show with one limerick coming up.
okay.
A 1, 2, 3.
We
love seeing Ivor today, always cheering us up, come what may. From Manson to pop, his books never stop, and his witty style's sure here to stay.
Wow.
Thank you, Ivor. God bless.
Thank you for that limerick. Stay well. Have a healthy new year, and I look forward to seeing you both soon.
Okay.
Absolutely.
God bless you. Love you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, my love.
Thanks for tuning in to TeaFlix, and check out Dr. Angie's books, Organic Teas and CBD at mrsmccartneysteas.com. Toodle pip.